Marvel Spotlight is here to change the entire MCU. It's not related to anything in the MCU except in the fact that they keep referencing it over and over again. Let's talk about our mega review of Echo here on That Park Place. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I am Jonas J. Campbell. I am an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and I am here to welcome you to the Walt Wright Pipeline. I said it wrong. Oh, my goodness. I love this phrase, though. Joining me today to talk about Echo are two of my wonderful compatriots, those being John from Cine Park Rangers and Culture Casino. John, you doing all right?
Doing well, even after that show.
A little hint as to how it's going to go. Culture Casino, you doing all right, man?
Hey, I am 100% Walt Wright. Just so you know.
It just cracks me up. I think whoever said it meant it as an insult, but it's just too clever. It's just too clever. All right. So we have all seen Echo. It dropped on Tuesday night, very late, 9 p.m., and it's 5 episodes. And I believe it was cut down. Could you guys tell? Do you think that they did a good job of reducing it from the original 8 down to
no?
Okay. Does anyone want to give for those who have not watched Echo, which I'm assuming is actually going to be a pretty big portion of the audience? Can you give a brief summation of who Echo is? John, do you want to inform everyone?
Yeah, sure. We'll go with this version of Echo. Was introduced in Hawkeye, and she is after Ronan, who was a persona of Hawkeye, and for killing her father. And she later in that show finds out that Wilson Fisk hired Ronan to take him out, and then she shoots Fisk in the eye, spoilers. And so we pick things up with her in this show. She's deaf. She has she's an amputee, so she's got a metal leg that can do some things ish, kind of. And yeah, that's pretty much where we pick things up in the Echo show. That is the summation of her character.
To sum it up in one sentence, she's a twice orphaned deaf amputee Choctaw mafia ninja. If that's not clear enough.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's so much better than what I just did.
Yes. Oh wait, and imbued with the powers of her ancestors via magic.
Yes, let's talk about that. We get a very MCU kind of intro here at the beginning of the show. Let's just talk about that. So the show starts not with Echo, but with some kind of ancient aliens who are naked. But you see a lot, but you don't see anything that would get them into that TVMA rating.
Yeah, it's Mystique makeup. It's like that.
That's a good way to put it.
I don't know. It was real borderline. I was like, oh, they went with the rated R version of this. Yeah, it was real close.
Yeah, you see quite a bit, although not enough that I feel like I need to go repent or anything like that.
No.
But there's this unusual scene in a cave where these people come out, and they're kind of the same color as rocks or mud or something like that. I'm not the one who made these images, guys. I'm just describing them.
Well, I felt like they were more gold encrusted idols, and that would fall right in line with Disney these days.
There's like the heart of Te Fiti in a lake in the cave. It's glowing.
Yeah, it was like, dude, Moana. I was like, this is amazing.
And then CGI bird lands on the head one's hand. And
I didn't know they had CGI back in ancient times, Jones.
Well, it was apparently they had a lot more time to produce it back then, so it wasn't as obvious. I've heard that birds aren't real, but the bird flies off, and there's a cave in, and now they all somehow end up on the surface, and all of their skin flakes off, and they become the Choctaw.
Yes, and they're wearing clothes all of a sudden as well.
Yes,
that was pretty neat.
I might add.
And they were, I mean, that was a high quality fabric too. It was, they nailed it. I mean, it was like appropriate for the climate and well hemmed. And I mean, somebody put in a lot of time and work in that underground cave area weirdness.
Yeah. To prepare for the cave in that they didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah. Also, I'm glad apparently the bird survived, because that bird keeps showing up the entire series. Yep. So, and then we come to present day. We're not going to describe every scene of this, because I don't think any of us really wants to spend that much time. But But it is important to we do find out how Echo lost her leg, and it was because her decided to go get was it pudding in the rain? What
No, cocoa.
Cocoa.
Yep.
Sorry, I was thinking chocolate here. And I think this car crash probably around the 2000s. Despite that, okay, she finds out her brakes go out. She turns to look at her daughter, and they have a little sign language interaction there as the car is about to, I don't know, not stop. And then, of course, it crashes and brakes. You know, she says, "What's wrong, Mom?" in sign language, and you very clearly see eye contact here. You know, instead of on the road, and glass shatters and slices her leg off. You don't see the leg slice off, but you see a very calm little girl. I mean, no emotion whatsoever on this little girl, to the point where I'm like, okay, either this girl has some kind of nerve problem or she's a stone cold psychopath already at whatever age she is. No screams, nothing. I think she can vocalize on some level, so I don't think that has anything to do with it. She's deaf, not mute. And forgive me if I'm not up with the terms here. But a giant shard of glass comes down and lodges in her leg, and the next thing we know, she's grown and no leg.
Okay, and I'll just say this: in the vehicle they were in, everything still would have been glass that would shatter on impact. So that particular scene was a contrivance, a stretch too far. And they've already asked you to stretch too far already. So,
I mean, we could just Google when was safety glass invented. It was an ancient plot line in Ghost, right? Ghost, the glass shatters and kills the bad guy there at the end. This is it's kind of ridiculous. Whoever wrote it didn't. Let's see.
Think about it.
In 1909, the first successful patent for safety glass was taken out in France by an artist and chemist. It's been around a while anyway. So we're already starting on this not quite reality thing. They jump to present day. Well, sorry, they don't jump to present day. They jump to a flashback.
You get Hawkeye stuff,
right? Scenes from
Ronin
Hawkeye,
stuff.
right? And there's a lot of Ronin in there. By the way, this is supposed to be awesome. Marvel Spotlight, which is supposed to be not so connected to the MCU. Which I'm starting to get the idea that maybe that was a marketing move. Well, we might talk about that more somewhere else.
We should.
But as far as reviewing this goes, there's a whole lot of Hawkeye in this show, and not much of anything. They don't go back to the Netflix Daredevil series, but she goes on her first mission. Somehow she still gets groped, even though they have barely any time to introduce this character. They still find a way for somebody to do something pervy, and they don't even make the guy a dirtbag. They just have him all of a sudden out of nowhere do this. Like, come on, you got this mobster here. Whatever. Anyways,
wait, would you call that a contrivance?
I think I would. Well, and the whole scene. Okay, so I think people who are interested in Echo might remember the leak of the fight scene. The fight scene that obviously was added in reshoots,
and no blows were landing.
Not a single one.
So they go into this thing and they take out all the guys, and then for no reason, I mean literally no reason, Daredevil shows up, and then he explains to everyone that he is there for no reason.
Yes,
he literally says, "I was watching these guys all night, and then you showed up," and then they fight.
Yep.
Like
round one, fight. Yeah,
it's sad to me because truthfully, this character deserves better, and we can get more into like the as it progresses and stuff. But Daredevil and Echo have pretty cool history and chemistry in the comics, and for this to be the interaction that's given, I was waiting. Well, we'll get into that, I assume, but I was waiting for some more of that as the season went on, and it may or may not have happened. No,
you can go ahead and say this is the only time that Daredevil shows up for the entire series.
First 15 minutes.
Yeah, which makes me say that the quote unquote leak was definitely a media plant. Like somebody wanted that to get out there.
Yeah.
So there was no copyright strikes on anybody putting that out there. They wanted everyone to know, oh, Daredevil is in this show. We've got a one take like Daredevil. Not a one take. Super obvious cuts in there. There's a lot of dance moves, and they're trying really hard to sell these moves. And when I say sell, like when the impacts hit, they're like there are things that stunt performers do to try to really quote unquote sell the move. And as hard as they are going with this choreography, I don't think they had enough time to really. I mean, she almost blows his head off with a shotgun. There's no reason that she should have missed the shot, other than they want the fight to continue.
Yeah.
And this is, by the way, one of the better parts of the entire series.
Yeah. There is one piece of that fight that I thought was neat, and it's another piece like within She-Hulk that I thought was neat with Daredevil's movements. He moves a little more versus the Netflix show. He moves a little more like how I always envision Daredevil moving, if that makes sense. And just the fluidity of it. It's not quite Spider-Man, but it's not far from it. And in the Netflix show, he never really does that.
John, would you agree that this is more like a Jackie Chan kind of a choreography in these scenes than we've seen from any of these shows?
Yeah, I definitely would.
The sliding underneath things, over things, through things. I mean, that is pure Jackie Chan. It's exactly what you're talking about. That's how Daredevil should
be. Yeah.
First of all, how dare you bring Jackie Chan into this? But I would agree with that assessment.
I'm sorry. Are we not supposed to connect Disney with China anymore?
Oh, that's a very good point. So with that being said, are there other fight scenes in this series that match that level of choreography?
No. I thought you were going to say, are there other fight scenes? And I almost just had the same reaction because there's like two other ones.
Basically. Right. And they're ridiculous fight scenes.
I mean, I have to say, really, according to Critical Drinker, accommodating stuntmen. They were very accommodating, practically leaping through some of the moves.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The stunt crew deserves to be applauded.
Yes,
for putting up with what was probably a very rushed shoot. So they do eventually get to present day. They establish very early on that Kingpin is involved in her life. I will say something positive here. When they have the translator in the scenes with the Kingpin, they have it lit in a way that you can see the translator's face, but it is very apparent that the focus is no. You need to be focused on the Kingpin. He's in that white suit, which looks a little ridiculous. It does look a little ridiculous in the limo, but he's meant to look massive and overshadowing and overtaking whatever scene he is. So they did do a good job in that particular aspect, and that poor translator at some point. It does make me wonder if they've got a kill room set up in Kingpin's house at all times, just in case he decides to whack somebody.
Kind of feels that way.
Hey, look, that's the best scene in there, because in my mind, I'm hearing Lethal Weapon. I'm looking to see if I'm standing on plastic.
Yeah.
But and Vincent D'Onofrio has some of the best scenes in this. Most of the best
actor.
Scenes.
Go ahead.
But he also has the most ridiculous aspect is also involved with the Kingpin as well. We'll get into that in a moment.
Yes, 100%. It's he's the only saving grace that this show has, and that's sad because I forget the actress's name. I apologize, but yes, that plays Echo. She's it's serviceable. You know what I mean? Like it's not. I don't know. They don't give her enough to do. This show, I think when it gets down to brass tacks, it just I can explain to you, Culture, what I kind of messaged to Jonas yesterday after finishing it. It feels like this whole thing was shot TV-14 and it was ready to go, and everything that they've been doing lately has been losing a ton of money. They know that they need to take some risk. I think that Marvel does realize that at this point. I think the page 1 rewrite of Daredevil is kind of evidence of that enough. So this show clearly stunk, and they were like, okay, the show stinks. What can we do to market it well? Okay, and we get to this place where, okay, well, she's connected to Kingpin. Kingpin was in Daredevil. Daredevil was TVMA. Maybe we can make it TVMA. And maybe we've got Charlie Cox back. There's this Daredevil show coming out. Let's shoot a scene with him too, kind of throw that in there. And then we'll just, kind of see what happens. but there are a couple moments where it's clear that this was not intended to be TVMA.
Right.
Like, what was the line that you sent me, Jonas?
In episode 2, one of them looks at the other one and says that, and I'm going to use a word I don't usually use on the internet. They says that, well, crap rolls downhill. And this is supposed to be a hardened criminal that says, well, crap rolls downhill. Like, oh, okay, interesting. The MCU is also not averse to using saltier language than that, generally speaking. So I'm like, okay, I'm not saying that I want darker language or more coarse language in the MCU, but I chuckled a little bit at that one. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Viewer discretion is advised is part of your marketing here more than the spirit of what you're doing.
Yeah. Yes,
because this is a man who works with criminals and has probably killed people and works for a guy who kills people and knows that he's about to die, knows he doesn't know that he's about. He knows that he's under threat now, and he uses the soft language there when talking to his criminal associates.
I like you said, I think that's an astute observation on both of your part, because I do believe that they were going to try to push this indigenous storyline, because that's what this is. This is a bait and switch in that sense. Normally they bait and switch us differently. This is a bait and switch in telling us a completely different story than was sold the general public. And I think that they knew that if they tried to sell that to kids, they were going to get called out. Especially Disney's reputation right now is not great. So I think you're both right. I think it was not just a marketing thing, but it was also like a realization that if they wanted to get an audience at all, they were going to have to change it up.
Yeah.
You can tell that with the reshoots. I mean, the first episode, which is what we're still buried in that, by the way, kids, we're not even close.
No, we've wandered a little bit into episode 2, but they really bleed together.
Yeah. And the first episode is so choppy, inconsistent, jump cut editing.
Literal jump cuts in the middle of fights.
Yes.
Like, and I'm not talking they would go to a different shot. It is the same shot, and they've just cut out, they've cut out one frame in order to sell the impact. They've cut out, like, she jumps to different spots, and not in a cool, like, I'm going to do some Quentin Tarantino style editing here. Right. No, it just, where are the frames? I don't understand what you have done here. Her leg was not anywhere near that, and not the leg that can theoretically come off.
Yeah.
I like you said, I said this during my review on it, which I dropped this morning early. This is an exhausting show to watch, that first episode in particular, because they make you, the audience, fill in all of the gaps. Everywhere there's cuts along the storyline, you're filling in that gap. You're making assumptions, and you have to make a lot of assumptions through the first 2 episodes of the show, particularly in the first episode, because they don't fill it in. And the stuff that they go back later and try to fill in is so clumsy and out of place. It is distracting at that point. So you shouldn't have done that anyway.
Yeah, I would say, especially from a storytelling standpoint, they forget what the audience does know and does not know.
Oh, gosh, yes.
For instance, she learns that she is going after Kingpin, but at that point, she does not know that Kingpin is still alive, because later on, it's supposed to be a revelation that she knows who Kingpin is. So she has no reason to go after the organization in general. A lot of those people are her fellow, her co-workers that she has been, or family members that she's been working with for a very long time. So I don't understand why there's a revenge plot against someone who doesn't exist anymore, because she's already got him. Now, before I want to cover one aspect before we jump all the way to the finale here. I just have to point out, there's an episode, it's called Light Horseman, and they do a thing where they point out in a lot of flashbacks that there are women who are very powerful in this bloodline. It's something some huge dude will show up, and then you see some tiny woman that for some reason is in a fight with him, and it's like, okay, we've seen enough modern cinema, modern TV. I know where that's going. Culture, do you have something you want to throw in there?
Yeah, I mean, it starts right at the beginning of the thing. I mean, who's the leader of the Choctaw all of a sudden? Who is right after their form, it's a woman. Follow me. Okay.
Yeah, and all of the episodes are named after different
the ancestors.
Choctaw, female, basically superheroes. So this thing about the Light Horseman, it's shown in black and white. and it's in a silent film style. Again, even though everyone can speak, they decide at this point instead of showing, something that would sell to the audience a little bit more, they do the title cards as if it's a silent film. So it's very awkward there, but there's a super based line in there. It says, "No, women are life givers, men are life takers." I'm like, yeah, that's not going to disagree with you there. And
had they continued on that path, the show would have held me better, right? I mean, I think we could all say that. It's like,
sure.
A realization of that, of the fact that we have different roles in life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They had so many opportunities to do things the right way, and then they went and did it the modern way.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's for me, like, just where this whole thing ends up falling flat, because so that silent film piece too, right? It's shot to be like a silent film. Mm-hmm. However, like in aesthetic. However, all of there's camera movement all over the place, which when you're doing a silent film, they would never have done that. Like, it would have been sticks everywhere. It would have just been like, here's your frame. Here's the action that's going on in the frame. And that would have continued to be the thing. It just bothers me. It takes me all the way out when I'm watching something like that. The other thing that the whole show suffers from, because I'm anticipating these are very like nitpicky, like weird gripes, but from like a filmmaking perspective, I think that they're merited. The color grade of the entire thing is so vibrant, and it feels weird and out of place when the whole thing is supposed to be this kind of like gritty tale of, this like of Echo coming into her own as a hero, when guess what, she's not. She's killed so many people. Like, at best she's an anti-hero, but she's on par with Punisher, should be. And it's like you're painting her as this like, this like warrior that's doing all these great things, and like fighting the Kingpin, and it's time for a queen, and like all this cringy dialogue. It's just like we don't need this. Like, if you want her to be cool, make her cool. Like, write her cool. Don't do these things that are like just so contrived and lazy. This is the same issue that I had with She-Hulk. That predates me ever like being on that Park Place, but it's the same thing. It's lazy, and it's not even a cash grab, because they're losing money. Granted, they spent a lot less on this than they did She-Hulk. I think the budget for this was like $40 million, which is probably an appropriate amount. That's probably like the first appropriate amount that I've seen from a Disney Plus show in a while.
I wonder if that's true. I'm sure it's less than. I mean, there's not that much CGI in this. In fact, there are a lot of reasons that this should not have been a superhero show in any way, because it probably would have been better without the superhero stuff in it.
Without a doubt.
So the thing that I really want to talk about in this third episode is not the Light Horseman thing, other than it bears on what happens in the finale, which is something. I want to talk about the kidnapping scene where,
oh my gosh.
Goodness.
So somehow they kidnap. I forget, because this is a very forgettable show. I forget how they kidnap Echo in the first place, but
chloroform.
It's the guy. Oh, okay, chloroform. So they got her with chloroform. She wakes up in the middle of a skating rink, and the skating rink is pivotal. It might be why it was 40 million, is because they got a lot of use out of that skating rink.
They sure did.
So she wakes up in the middle of the skating rink, and then they decide at that point that they need to move her. And they show that I think his name is Charlie, the guy. He has a gag on him, and he's looking at what's going on. By the way, he looks like he's in pretty good shape for somebody who has been gagged and bound. He looks like they just put that thing on him right before the scene started. Is it Henry?
Henry, Uncle Henry.
Yes,
Uncle
Henry. Chaska Spencer's character.
Yes. By the way, they did have 3 exceptional actors in this. They just didn't use them right. Oh, by the way, none of them were the lead.
Right,
so
right.
You know.
But I have to point this. Then they decide at that point they need to move her to the back while they show her that her friend is tied up. The Charlie or Henry, and then somebody else shows up, and they untie the friend just to tell her to go away, and they have him using sign language to tell her to go away. And then the friend goes outside, And as she walks away through a completely empty parking lot, somehow somebody jumps out at her in a completely empty parking lot. You know, this is the kind of thing that a filmmaker gets lazy and they say, oh, well, where was he hiding? He was hiding out of frame. He was not hiding behind anything in this empty parking lot.
Yeah, he was there.
And then
it was fine.
They decide to put them in the back room. And I am not kidding when I say she constructs a laser-sighted knife gun out of the parts in a roller skating rink. And has the opportunity to use it several times, 3 times. I don't know where she found 3 knives, but she fires the thing at least 3 times. And they come out, and she, again, not a person with a weapon other than her fists and her feet, faces off against a dozen guys with guns in a skating rink. And it's not like they're all close to her.
No.
They just decide that whoever is in frame is a threat, and everybody else, you know, this makes absolutely no sense why she's not shot.
Nope. You're being too critical, Jonas. She's got stealth powers.
Okay. What? I feel like nobody's going to watch this, so they need to understand of the powers that she has, which she doesn't have any powers till the end, by the way.
I don't know,
and we're going to talk about that next. She has no powers of stealth, and apparently she has a super squeaky leg, because that thing is really squeaky when she gets the repaired leg, and then all of a sudden she's again going back to ninja. I can't
run on this leg, but I'm sure going to kick people's booty on this leg. I was like, all right then, yeah,
sure, why not?
and again, just to get into the weird, they do another flashback and they show I think it's Echo's grandmother giving birth to her mother.
Yes,
or maybe it's her great grandmother. Anyways, there's this long thing about how she didn't want to be born, she didn't want to have her baby in a white hospital. And like, okay, yeah, that I can understand.
That was Echo's grandmother giving birth to her mother.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. She's the final shot of her actually giving birth. She's standing against a tree, leaning against a tree in the rain, and it's really raining, pouring down like bullets.
Dude, they set all the sprinklers to high overhead,
and then the woman behind her is bone dry.
Yeah. Oh, I missed that.
Her hair is dry. Her clothes are dry.
Oh, I missed that. That's
I didn't even mention that in my review. I was so kind. I was so kind.
All right. If you guys don't mind, let's talk about the finale of this. It's only 35 minutes, just like Secret Invasion, and there's a lot of ways in which this is like Secret Invasion. The last 35 minutes of this show, there are credits in there, there's an intro in there, and there's some flashbacks in there too. So we don't get that much action in that 35 minutes, but essentially they've got a situation here where it's the Choctaw powwow, and she's connected with everyone that she needs to connect with at this point. It's been well revealed she's had several talking confrontations with Kingpin, and apparently she needs to have one more. For some reason, they've decided to shoot up the evil people have decided to shoot up the Choctaw powwow for reasons that are not fully clear to me.
Killing all her family and relatives and all of them.
Yeah, Obadiah Stane had clearer reasons for wanting to murder Pepper Potts in the first Iron Man. I'll say that, which those were pretty loose. Like, so you've got a Biscuit that is for some reason decides to run over a bunch of guys with a monster truck that we've never seen before.
Biscuits.
Sorry, I forget. Sorry, I don't mean.
And not to be confused with Lieutenant Biscuits from Andor. Don't confuse it.
Is there a Lieutenant? I haven't watched Andor yet.
I haven't.
Is there a Lieutenant Biscuits in there?
Not by actual name, but by moniker.
Okay.
Yes, so, she. Anyway, I'm not doing it. I'm being nice.
This all culminates in a scene and where she goes out dancing with all of the people of her tribe, and she's wearing some kind of costume that has some kind of outer layer. And not happy, but she's joined her people finally, and she just decides to walk off because she's brooding, and she ends up in a stable. But there's also, it's yet another large open space, and Kingpin is there, and I'm assuming you're here to kill me or whatever. It doesn't matter. They all bleed together. And she takes off her robe, and now you see her full ethnic superhero costume. She's got the Native American superhero costume on, which I don't believe is like the one they have in the comics. And for some reason, the Kingpin has also brought all of the women in her life into this stable, which was empty moments before, and also a bunch of criminals. And she has this kind of flash moment where she becomes all of her ancestors all at once. She gets the defeaty hands that show the spiral on both of her hands, and she transforms into each of her ancestors, and all of the women who are related to her also get superpowers, and they proceed to defeat all of these men, again with guns, but they leave Kingpin alone. And forgive me if I describe this incorrectly, please, because it's so unbelievably weird. She puts her hands together and puts her hands on Kingpin's head and heals him of his generational trauma. Through a dream sequence, she tells him, "You don't have to have your pain anymore."
Yep.
And then comes out and he goes, "What did you do to me?"
Yep. Yeah. She's Cindy Lou Who, and he's the Grinch, apparently.
Was any of that inaccurate in any way?
No, actually, his description's great. Wow, I couldn't place it exactly where I'd seen that scene before, except I've seen it a lot.
Except that you've seen it in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you've seen it in Secret Invasion, where where she gets all of the powers of all of the superheroes, including all of the girl bosses.
Wait, you know where else I saw it? Thor: Love and Cancer.
You know, I actually haven't seen that one, so thank you for that checkbox. It's also another instance of the power was inside of you all along, which
you're the key to everything. Oh wait, are we doing all the Marvel modern audience tropes?
Well, no, I went to Mulan there with that one. Although the power was inside of you all along is also Captain Marvel. This is like, I don't know what religion this is appealing to.
Yes, you do.
I do know what religion this is appealing to. They just don't call themselves a religion. It's a collectivist religion.
Yes. It's called neo-Marxism.
Yeah, it is so weird and is so lame. And I guess she's a good person now because she has healing powers. But once again, you go back to her powers, and it's not her powers that are cool. It's the fact that she is. I'm gonna go make sure I remember this. She is a twice orphaned, deaf amputee Choctaw mafia ninja.
Yes. The biggest question that I have coming off at the end of this one is, say Marvel does, after watching this, by some miracle, pull off something outstanding with the 4th season of Daredevil. What they're basically doing is the 4th season of Daredevil, and it takes itself seriously the way that the first few seasons did. And it's got good writing and good action and all these sorts of things, right? It's very grounded. How do you then reintroduce Echo into that world? Is Daredevil going to play stupid and forget that she's killed all the people that she's killed? You know what I mean? How do we get to I don't know where she fits back in, which is, again, Jonas, the first time we had this conversation, the first time we talked about Echo, I had a very different tune, and I wanted this show to be awesome. The trailer, the marketing is, it's the worst lie that they've told in a while,
right?
I think, and because of that, it tricked me 100%. I will admit it. I am the fool here, because I thought for a second, maybe with the reshoots and cutting it down and everything, maybe they got something super tight and solid, and this is going to be the return to form. The problem that I'm getting with all these things is, this has happened a couple times where I'm like, maybe this will be the one. Maybe this will be the one. Maybe this will be the one. I would like to continue to hold out hope that maybe Daredevil will be solid. I think Deadpool will probably be solid, but the Marvel Spotlight thing that we talked about the last time we had this discussion around this character, as you already mentioned, it's already moot. If this is the first entry into Marvel Spotlight, the whole purpose of that branding is out the window, because you have to have watched Hawkeye to see this show, and you also you really need to have watched Daredevil So watch this show.
Right, because there are several
Kingpin.
plot points in this. Like that hammer has zero significance. The pounding on the wall has zero significance if you have not watched at least the first 2 seasons of Daredevil.
Yeah. Yes.
If not all 3.
Yes.
So yeah, that spotlight aspect, it's pure bunk. I think it's marketing, and I will say that everything that in that trailer that everyone was talking about, it looks like it was added in reshoots, because that looks like they got Vincent D'Onofrio. They didn't even get Alakwa Cox. They found a time when they could get the 2 of them available, close set, have somebody be a jerk, and then have Kingpin beat the tar out of somebody. Other than that, you've got Vincent D'Onofrio just like, well, how did I act when I did this before? It's very, I don't want to say it's low effort, because the guy's a great actor. But you don't have to have most of the people involved. Oh, and here I am forgetting the absolute most ridiculous thing, because I've been reminded of it now. There is a scene where, again, Echo's abilities change depending on how they need it to play out in the scene, where she's held down by several men, and Kingpin, it looks like he's going to rip out her eye or something like that, and he puts a contact lens in her eye.
Oh, yeah.
That does American Sign Language.
Yep.
Now, if I were a person designing this technology, I'm just going to say, you might just go with plain text. You might just put subtitles in her eye instead of giving her ASL hands. Just going to point out, maybe in 2.0 you can just make it be plain text.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a pair of floating CGI hands, and I mean, they are not good looking CGI hands.
Oh no, it's terrible.com. Yeah, no,
so bad. Yeah. This okay. So to wrap this up, this show is rushed. This show is several different shows stacked on top of each other, and I don't think any of those shows know what it wants to be. It looks like they added reshoots to try to market the show differently, which, hey, that happens. But in this case, they tried to say that it was a different product than it was. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Go ahead.
2.5 hours. 2.5 hours of my life are now gone. And then the hour I spent recording my review. So 3.5 hours of my life are gone. And by the way, all 3 of us did that for you, the audience. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I got live streams. I've got a couple of 3-hour live streams to clip that I was thinking to myself, how in the world am I going to have time for this? How in the world? But I want to say thank you to Culture Casino for being here. John, have you final word, and then tell people where they can find you.
Yeah. I guess the takeaway that I had with this is Alakwa Cox, as someone who's not a traditionally trained actress, she was done dirty here. And that's the thing that sticks out to me the most. I think it sucks for her. It's sad. Vincent D'Onofrio is great. She had some really good talent around her to try and help elevate that craft. And unfortunately, she's just not given the right material to work with for someone who's never done it before and is brand new to it. A better representation of how that should go is something like The Holdovers, with the kid that played the main protagonist in that movie alongside Paul Giamatti. That's a much better way to handle that sort of thing. And I just think it's sad. I love Marvel stuff. I love it to death. It just makes me sad. Yeah, that's my final thought.
Well, I'm not going to ask everybody to put numeric value on this. I would say if you want to watch it for laughs, watch the last 30 minutes, which is the entire last episode. And you'll get an idea of maybe why we've judged it this way. It just took them 2.5 hours to get to that last 30 minutes. Again, I have not laughed out loud so hard at a comedy or a drama or anything in the last 6 months as I did at the ending of Echo. Guys, representation is not a bad thing, but oh man, this ain't it. This definitely ain't it. This is pandering. This is content, and this is checking the box. Whew.
Which is insulting.
Yes, it is insulting. I don't know who would be pleased by this show.
Well, I can tell you, somebody who knows somebody who is Choctaw, at least partially Choctaw, they were flipping out angry with the show.
Of course.
I would love to hear their opinions. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking with us to the end of this very salty review of Echo. over on Disney Plus and Hulu. Maybe we'll be talking about the shenanigans there about how Disney shifted costs over to a different sector in order to show that they are, quote unquote, making money on Disney Plus. Like this video. If you like this video, share it out on social media. If you know someone who needs to have something more entertaining than Echo, but still wants to know what goes on in the show, and please consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.